Welcome to today's explainer. Now, right off the bat, you're probably noticing our rather unique visual style. Yes, everything you're going to see is rendered in intricately arranged elbow macaroni. It's a bit unconventional, I know, but we're using this unique art to unpack a seriously grave and complex 25-year geopolitical era triggered by 9/11. It's a story of a single day that lasted just 2 hours, but literally reshaped the next 2 decades of global history. We're going to look at how 19 individuals changed the world's superpower and exactly how that power pushed back.
Okay, let's dive into this chronological journey. We're breaking this down into 5 parts: the attacks, the response, the wars, the costs, and finally, the 2026 perspective.
Section 1. The attacks. September 11th, 2001.
To really understand everything that follows, it's so important to ground ourselves in the reality of that Tuesday morning. It began as this perfect late summer day on the East Coast, completely clear blue skies. And honestly, it's that profound calm that makes the sudden, history-altering shock of the hijackings so staggering to comprehend, even all these years later. Between 8:46 a.m. and 10:03 a.m., 4 commercial airplanes were hijacked by al-Qaeda terrorists. 2 planes struck the World Trade Center in New York City, these massive symbols of global economic power. By mid-morning, a 3rd plane hit the Pentagon in Virginia, the literal heart of the U.S. military. And at 10:03 a.m., Flight 93, which was likely headed for the Capitol or the White House, crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after the passengers and crew bravely fought back. By the time that short window closed, nearly 3,000 people had been killed. To this day, it remains the deadliest foreign attack on American soil in history.
Section 2. The response. A global shift. So the immediate aftermath of the attacks required an immediate political reaction, right? The world's sole superpower pushed back with unprecedented force. Addressing a joint session of Congress, President George W. Bush declared a global war on terror. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this exact phrase: either you are with us. With those words, he sharply divided the geopolitical landscape. The U.S. made it abundantly clear that they would no longer distinguish between terrorists and the sovereign nations that harbored them.
And this was a massive shift. The global war on terror wasn't going to be your traditional state-on-state conflict with clear front lines. It was a completely new framework. The primary initial target was Osama bin Laden and his sprawling network, al-Qaeda. Because they were operating out of Afghanistan under the protection of the Taliban, well, the geography of this new conflict was set.
But hey, the response wasn't just international. It changed life right here at home, too. Domestically, the U.S. government passed sweeping legislation, most notably the Patriot Act, which dramatically expanded surveillance powers. They also created a massive new federal agency, the Department of Homeland Security. And as you can imagine, this fundamentally changed the ongoing balance between civil liberties on one side and expanded national security on the other.
Section 3. The Wars. Multi-theater operations.
This conflict quickly grew into sprawling, borderless military actions overseas that would define foreign policy for the next 2 decades. Here's how it unfolded. Step 1. In 2001, U.S. and allied forces launched Operation Enduring Freedom. They invaded Afghanistan to topple the Taliban and hunt for bin Laden. This specific operation would actually stretch on to become the longest war in U.S. history. Step 2. In 2003, the focus expanded significantly with the invasion of Iraq, and Step 3, fast forward a full decade after the attacks to 2011, when U.S. Navy SEALs finally killed Osama bin Laden during a nighttime raid in Abbottabad, Pakistan.
Now, we actually need to pause on the 2003 Iraq War for a second. The U.S. invasion of Iraq was initially driven by intelligence claiming that Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, and that he had operational links to al-Qaeda. The sources we're looking at note that this intelligence was later found to be flawed. However, the invasion completely shifted the focus of the war on terror, and it ended up sparking a massive, deadly regional insurgency in Iraq.
Section 4. The Costs. The Toll of 2 Decades.
I want to slow down the pacing right here, because when we look at these interconnected conflicts across the Middle East and Central Asia, the human and financial consequences are simply staggering. Let's start with the financial burden. $8 trillion. By 2026, estimates for the total cost of these post-9/11 wars exceed that $8 trillion mark. This massive price tag has been a direct and highly significant contributor to the massive U.S. national debt we see today.
But, the true cost isn't money. It's human life. These wars cost the lives of over 7,000 U.S. service members. And when we look at the civilian toll across Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, the number reaches into the hundreds of thousands. It is a profound, devastating loss of life spread across multiple nations.
And this brilliantly illustrates the unintended domino effect of all this. The destabilization caused by the war in Iraq left a massive power vacuum in the region. That vacuum directly led to the rise of the Islamic State, or ISIS. It effectively created a new and in many ways even more brutal phase of the conflict throughout the mid-2010s.
Section 5. The 2026 Perspective. A post-war world?
Let's evaluate the current realities we face today, a full quarter-century after those perfect blue skies back in 2001. In 2021, the U.S. completed a highly chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the Taliban immediately returned to power. So the crucial point is this: that exit marked the symbolic end of what many people called the Forever Wars. However, the war on terror didn't actually end. It just kind of moved into the shadows.
Because today, in 2026, military strategy has entirely shifted. We've moved away from those massive ground invasions and attempts at nation-building. Instead, the focus is now on what's called over-the-horizon counterterrorism. What this means is relying heavily on remote tactics. We're talking about unmanned drones, highly specialized elite forces, and invisible cyber warfare to neutralize threats, all without needing to permanently occupy foreign territory.
But honestly, the most profound impact might be right in front of us, in our everyday lives. The events of 9/11 literally built the modern society we navigate today. The legacy of that fear reshaped global travel, with the TSA checkpoints we all pass through at the airport. It completely rewired international banking through strict anti-money laundering laws. It fundamentally expanded the digital surveillance landscape. And, sociologically, the sources note it fueled a marked rise in both Islamophobia and nationalism across many Western countries.
9/11 was a moment of profound unity, but also profound trauma. It launched a war with no clear borders and no clear end date. Here in 2026, we live in a world that is certainly safer in some mechanical ways, but decidedly more scrutinized and divided in others. So, as we look at the silent skyline of Lower Manhattan today, considering all the lives lost and the trillions spent, we're left with one final vital question to ask ourselves. Did we defeat the terror, or did the war change us more than it changed our enemies?